Thank you very much. I'm honored to chair this first panel under the umbrella of digital transition, regulation, and cybersecurity. We may say here, basically, we are the seven magnificent panel being said. Anyway, the themes are very relevant for the context. There is a senior panel level, so I'm sure that each and every one will deliver both the institutional view and their own thoughts about the topics. Allow me briefly to invite the guests just to pick 1-2 figures from their background to connect the names with the topics and with the slides. Florin, you have the floor, please.
Hello, 30 years across financial markets. 1 figure, some words.
Only 30? Thank you very much. Gabriel, please.
Yes, almost 25 years in consulting in KPMG, always in the IT and cyber area.
Thank you. Ralph?
Hi, Ralph Rogobete from Mastercard. Not 30, not 25, but hopefully I will also reach that level soon. But yeah, I'm responsible for our government affairs and policy engagements for Romania and Croatia on behalf of Mastercard, and I've previously worked across different industries doing the same thing, so government engagement was my bread and butter, so good to see everyone.
Thank you very much. Catalin, please.
I would take 5 because I'm at the 5th employer since I joined the financial industry, and I'm in the 5th year since COVID, I think, like all of us.
Not bad, thank you. Andrei?
Andrei Burz, a lawyer, sorry for that. In financial service industry since '97, in Deloitte for 20 years plus, and what I do is banks, financial services, payments.
Thank you. Gabriel, please.
Hello. I'm the Deputy Director of DNSC, and I'm dealing with regulation and control. I'm in cybersecurity for over 10 years, and in DNSC for almost 3 years now.
Thank you very much. Within this panel, we'd like to extract from the complexity of the regulatory framework and provide you a vision. We'd like to argue, so please, you are invited to comment, to fight, to explain, whatever the other panelist will say. We'd also like to explore the security approaches and the various angles, because there is a huge complexity, diversity of perceptions, but as well a huge loads of regulations that we are trying to digest and to implement as good as possible. Andrei knows very well what I'm talking about. Last but not least, we are trying to build up partnerships in good sense, in a trustful manner, to enable the conversation, but to enable also the implementation of the regulatory framework to support all of us a better way of functioning and adopting, why not, technologies. In this respect, allow me to ask a set of questions. Each panelist will provide their input, their perspective, their institutional perspective, and why not, will comment on the views explained by the other panelists. The first set of questions: where are we in this digital transition journey, considering the intersection between financial industry, real economy, and also the role of the authorities? How long will this transition last, and if speed, is it an advantage or not? Please, we'll start from there. The national authority. You have the floor, please.
Yeah. Okay. I was actually hoping that someone from the financial sector will start, so I can pinpoint the cybersecurity issues as we see them from the DNSC. Well, talking from a cybersecurity standpoint, as you can see right now, everything is evolving at an accelerated pace. So we are meeting new technologies, started with crypto, now AI, we are already talking about post-quantum technologies and cryptography. So we live in a world where everything is starting to be digitalized, especially and mostly here in the payment sector. The digitalization, it's been highly adopted. So of course, the threats in the near future will be greater, and we will really need to find a way to adapt. So from a regulatory standpoint, it is very difficult for us. First, yeah, thank you. We are a secondary regulator in this market. We are mainly dealing with NIS2, and NIS2 is the baseline for the cybersecurity regulation on most of the sectors in Europe. We are also the national CSERT, and that means we are mainly dealing with cybersecurity incidents all over the sectors. So we have a responsibility to work here with now the DORA authorities in order to make sure that we can together deal with the threats in the financial market and the payment sector.
Speed, is it an advantage or not?
In terms of cybersecurity, speed is not an advantage because we have to keep up. As you know, if you're a cyber criminal, then you only need to be right once. You can make a lot of mistakes, but if you are right once, then you are hitting the target. If you're defending an entity, then you have to be right most of the times, and when you're not right, then you will have to be prepared, and you will have to have contingency measures set up. You'll have to use multiple layers of security in order to make sure that you're able to catch different threats. So it's a very difficult area, and yes, I believe that speed in this area isn't in our advantage.
Thank you very much. Andrei, please, and feel free to comment if there are any other.
Well, I'm not going to comment on cybersecurity after Gabriel, but as a lawyer, in terms of looking at the evolution of innovation versus regulation, what is striking is the enormous volume of regulations, okay? And I'm not even original by saying that. We all know about Mr. Draghi's report, and then that was like taken over by other very high-rank officials at EU level. And we have some promises that there will be a simplification. I personally am a bit skeptical that we'll see a simplification soon, also because it's difficult for people who build a regulatory architecture to now streamline it down. And on the other hand, the complexities of the world are not decreasing, they're actually increasing. In terms of speed, to me, is, from a safety perspective, I get it, yeah? We should not move fast. From economic growth and innovation perspective, it might be slightly different. We may have an interest to actually stimulate innovation. And it's very interesting because you mentioned also like crypto and so on. And it was previously mentioned as a payment rail. It's interesting what's happening in US, which seems to be more moving towards the principle that you see in startups, which is, move fast and break things, yeah? And then, we'll pick up the pieces and make the best one win, yeah? Now, in some economies, that might work to some extent. In other economies, you might want to take a bit of more of a cautious approach. What I would personally want to see is, I fully agree that, for same services, we should have the same regulations. So it makes sense that, stable coins, aka e-money tokens, are covered by the e-money directive. It was kind of obvious. Yeah. On the other hand, we should not neglect the risk of being late. So yes, we may not always want to be the first because we're afraid and we're cautious and so on, but we should also be very considerate about the risk of being too late in the process. So to me, that is the very difficult balancing act to be played by the regulators, first and foremost, and by the legislators. Yeah? It's like, how do you actually, you know, regulate, manage risk to an acceptable level, but in the same time do not stifle innovation? Because if you stifle innovation, you're left behind. And the previous speaker said, yeah, stablecoins, they're interesting. It's true that most of them are dollar-based. So maybe we would like to also have some euro-backed stablecoins, but we're a bit late in the process. Yeah? So trying to catch up, that's where I see the golden rule. Yeah? And the biggest dilemma, I think, of the regulators and supervisory authorities. What is acceptable management of risk vis-a-vis not obstructing innovation?
Thank you very much. Very good point. As the Vice Governor mentioned previously, we are enablers. We are very interested in the calibration. We are where we should balance innovation and security. This is a key point for all of us, because here we are very deeply involved in ensuring the financial stability of the system. That is a public good for each and every one of us. Thank you very much, Andrei, for the input. Catalin.
Yeah, the banking perspective. Just to answer directly to your question about where are we in the journey, I think it's very hard to say where are we in the journey because we don't know what is the end. So not knowing the end in this digital world, it's very hard to say that we are at 1/3, half, or just at 10% or 90%. Yeah? But what is essential is the fact that we have to move forward. Yeah? And what is the novelty in this very accelerating digital world is that we are playing here on two fields. One field is the competitive field, where basically it's a race for taking the benefit out of the digitalization in terms of optimizing the processes, bringing efficiency, and so on and so forth. And here, who lags behind might be on the not so nice side. And then we have the other side, where we are threatened. We are threatened by the risks that the digital world is facing, like cyber frauds and all this criminal ecosystem that is created around the digital side. And here, this is not a competitive field, because here it's a field where you have to unify the forces, all the actors. Yeah? So there is no actor who should be excluded from this table of fighting against this crime, because this is a crime in essence. Yeah? When coming about whether the speed is good or bad, the speed is good, yeah, because this is the new normal. So, and if you are not adapted to the new normal, then you'll be on the losing side. But of course, if you are not careful how you are going in this race of speed, yeah, you might create issues, or you are opening the gates for risks. Like, you might have cyber breaches, you might have regulatory gaps, you might go on the wrong path. So that's why you have to be very careful how you are engaged in this speedy journey, yeah, where we all are in this field. Yeah.
So another perspective on speed. Thank you, Catalin. Please, Ralph.
No, I fully agree with what my colleagues have said about the fact that balancing innovation and security is definitely a must, and it's a challenge. But maybe going back to the point about where are we, I also agree that not knowing the end is very hard to say that we are now at 50 or 60% in our digital journey. But what I can say is, if we look back 30 years ago from a payments perspective, we're celebrating the first issued card exactly 30 years ago, and since Mastercard has also entered the local market, I think we can safely say that the market has evolved, and what used to be maybe a niche payment solution has now evolved into contactless payments being the second most preferred choice of payment in Romania after cash. So I think from a payments perspective, looking back 30 years ago, we've come a long way. I do believe that there are still some disparities, especially when we're looking at urban-rural gaps when it comes to access to digital instruments, when it comes to embracing digital tools, I think that's an aspect that we still need to address, and this can be done only in a joint manner, so bringing together the stakeholders from private sector to the public sector, and so on. When it comes to just the topic of balancing innovation and security, I think the regulator's role is fairly simple. It is to set, especially when we're talking about innovation, where technology often has dual use. So when innovation comes, for example, AI, it can be used to better your business, to better your life, but at the same time, it can also be leveraged to, I don't know, scan vast amounts of data sets and attack the vulnerable people. So I think the job of the regulator is to ensure that that aspect, which is the abuse part of technology and innovation, is addressed in a technologically neutral manner, and then it sets the safe groundworks for businesses from small to large to innovate, to invest. And I think we have some good examples of regulations that have done this. If we look at what was mentioned before, DORA, NIS2, I think these are all legislations that are principles-based, risk-based, and not addressing a specific technology which often evolves, and then we end up with legislation that is lagging behind, and then it's a play of catch-up in the process. So I will stop here with this.
So I write down the role of the regulators is very simple. We'll comment after this one-to-one. Thank you. Gabriel, please.
I will move the discussion a little bit to the local market. I think financial services industry is one of the most advanced in terms of digital adoption, if not the most. If we compare financial services with other industries in Romania, there is a huge gap. And I think it's the same also not only in the industry, but also into the segregation of users. Yes, if we discuss about end users, my colleague was mentioning about rural part. It's not only that, it's also between ages. Elder users are easier to be manipulated, to be subjects of attacks and fraud, payments frauds to happen. So yes, indeed, this digital transition and adoption and innovation, especially in financial services, had a very advanced pace. Maybe what is something that we need to do, and this it's transcending the one industry, it's education, and especially education in, and we'll see that education probably it will come in more areas today about when we discuss about different topics, because if we discuss about younger people or kids in school, they are in the education mood. They learn fast. We did some cybersecurity awareness trainings in school, and you'll be surprised to see how much they know, including in this fraud, including in all the threats and risks that are out there. If we move to the elder people, and especially those which are now in pension, we will see that they are less open to new technologies, but sometimes they are forced to use. And if we go beyond using a card for a POS payment, that sometimes becomes complicated. So I think it's very good to keep the pace with the advance of technologies, AI, and all the technologies. All of these new technologies are coming with black or white parts, so we need to see where the gray balance is the right one, because they are bringing benefits, but they are also bringing risks. And I think what we should try, not on industry level, maybe on more society level, is to try to educate not only the next generations, but also our parents.
Thank you very much for your perspective. Florin, please, the banking industry, or other industries if you prefer to comment.
What can I add? You know, I'm not, I have to make my disclaimer also, as Andrei done it. I'm not a professional in the area, okay, of digitalization. but I'm representing banks for already 15 years, I guess. And I have a perception which is connected with that theory about 5 why. You know, you are finding a reason not to do something or to do something, and you are asking why many times to find the root of the problem. And this is our job in associations, to try to find the reason, the essence of the barrier, let's say. And I believe that the subject we are discussing today, the issue of digitalization, payments, innovation, is exactly in the same position that European banks mainly are facing today as a whole. And the macro view about this is about, of course, regulation, which is not a boost for innovation. We all know this. But also some gaps we can find, or barriers, which usually people like you, ladies and gentlemen, and like us here, but together, we are all the time politically correct and we are not naming it. So you are experts, you know exactly what rational and technical is true. Sometimes this true of the technical approach have no connection with the politically correctness, right? So this is the job of Romanian Banking Association. How to support true or techniques, or 2 + 2 = 4, right? And all the time we have to pay a difference about the results. If the political will say 2 + 2 is 4.5, that 0.5 must be in responsibility of somebody, usually not the decision makers. So the industry have to pay the difference. And this difference is named difference between reality and perception, right? If we are talking about perception, we started to lead the decision, not the reality. Here come the populism, which is connected to the people being happy to hear what they want to hear. So how our subject is connected with that? As an academic, but let's say, approach, we are finding today that the gap between rich people and poor people is enlarging. We have to add also that the gap between educated people and non-educated people is enlarging, which means a tremendous danger for the humanity already. When we are talking about regulation, I'm working for my PhD, let's say, thesis, and I tried to number the abbreviation of the regulations, which is mainly next to the craziness, but I wrote 1.5 pages with abbreviations of the regulations in Times New Roman 12. If we are seeing this, we can talk about the pressure on the innovation, which is mainly free, not regulated, right? And this is the technical and rational perception. Also, we are promising all the time to the people, already populistic from our side as technical people, that we can beat instantly the frauds, for example, right? But all the time it will be a gap between innovation, regulation, and frauds, right? And we have to accept this. This is the cost of the progress. And if we can see like this, maybe the regulation will take in consideration this reality, not just promising, sometimes populistic, that we can cover this gap. What are you doing in that moment? You are regulating tougher to gain speed. You asked about speed. To have a higher speed as regulator than the innovation, which is impossible. That means you have to stop innovation to be in front of with the regulation in front of the innovation. And in the middle are banks, right? Before we had the speech about who to pay, right? Everybody knows who to pay. In the place where the fraud is initiated, in the first second, right? But we are negotiating this reality. We are negotiating mathematics, physics, rules, principles, and ethics. And I believe for sure that our subject being so technical, I'm also technical people, but in treasury, not in physics and engineering, sorry. And I really believe this is the matter. This is the issue. And we are very grateful for the National Bank that is allowing us to discuss this. Okay, thank you.
Can I
Please, Andrei, please.
So I was just thinking in terms of your very precise questions, where are we going? Yeah? That if I look into the regulatory trends, we can have some answers. On one hand, in the preamble of FIDA, and I know FIDA is not necessarily a proposed legislation that is loved by banks or by other players, but it's still there in the payment services package. And in the preamble, it says that it's meant to support, or I don't know if the word is to support or to advance the movement of the financial sector to a data-driven economy. And because data-driven economy comes from the evolution of technology, and because technology progress cannot be stopped unless we're talking, massive disaster or whatever, yeah? I believe that this is the inescapable route. Yeah? The financial sector, like the rest of the economy, has to move to a data-driven business model. And hand in hand with this, also from the regulatory trends, since PSD2 came in, what we're seeing is that, interestingly, the regulators took maybe the safest revenue stream of banks, which is payments, and liberalized it. So banks take a lot of risk, they have a lot of risk-weighted assets, they have a tough job managing it, and what you're doing as a legislator, you come and take that one stream that was safer and say, well, we're going to allow a lot of other entities to provide services. And FIDA takes this even further. And I guess that, therefore, I think the answer to where are we heading is to a more diverse financial services ecosystem. I firmly believe that, and again, that is enabled by the technology. Because of the technological evolution, because of the behavior of the customers, I believe that we'll keep seeing this ecosystem diversifying. And I also believe that the banks, as the key traditional players, will, as they already started to, find a way to actually cooperate with the whole ecosystem.
Super. Thank you very much for your input. It's obvious that regulatory is very excited. It's a huge excitement for all of you. In this respect, the second pillar of the panel is about the regulatory framework. I will invite Andrei to open up the floor due to his background. So please pick up a regulation, a piece of a regulation, which you consider not easy to be implemented or more difficult to be implemented, and try to add also a CEE perspective, a regional perspective, and comment on it. Or in a simple manner, what are the obstacles for a better implementation or for a more valuable implementation for all the stakeholders?
Okay, that's a very broad question.
Pick up something relevant for our...
I mean, if we speak about payments, maybe just to put the big picture, we have, we know that PSD3 and PSR are coming, so that is the second revised Payment Services Directive, and we also have the Payment Services Regulation. And there are all these discussions about FIDA. For now, FIDA, the Financial Information Data Access Regulation, is still subject of hot debate. PSD3 and PSR, as they are stated even by the Commission, they're not meant to revolutionize the space. So they do bring a lot of new elements. In my view, they will bring new costs for the banks, but not only for the banks, also for the payment services institutions. For example, the payment institutions will have to go through a quasi-relicensing process, actually. Yeah. Well, it is. No, not quasi. It is a relicensing process, which adds a bit more regulatory burden, but I don't think it's something that will not be manageable. We're seeing also the unification of the framework between e-money institutions and payment institutions. There are still some distinctions, but we have one licensing process, let's say one licensing regime. I like this time the fact that the European Commission comes and aims to standardize the content, let's say, of the licensing file. I think that's a good thing, because it will reduce, let's say, regulatory arbitrage. I go to that country to get a license, whereas I'm trying to operate into another country. So I think that's a good thing. We're seeing the formal embedding of DORA into not just the governments, but even the licensing framework of these entities. Our national bank here already did that, by the way. As some of you know, there are a number of payment institution licensing in process, and we're seeing that DORA is already there. But to be honest, I don't think any of these things is going to be, you know, something horribly difficult or to handle, yeah? But tough. Then again, for me, it's going to be very interesting to see how will banks position themselves vis-a-vis not just PSD3, but even more when it's about FIDA. Because what we saw when PSD2 came was that this was pretty much, I think in 99% of the cases, just a cost issue for the banks, a compliance cost. Also because it was literally creating, it was forcing the banks to put money to allow competitors to plug into their APIs, yeah, and compete with them on payments. So the banks, and I'm not talking about Romania, we did a survey at the European level. Pretty much all the banks looked at it, this is a compliance cost, so they didn't really build up a business case around it. Later on, we saw banks also trying to take advantage of PSD2 to some extent, but I'm curious to see, that's going to be, to me, very interesting. How can we convert regulatory evolutions from compliance cost to business case? Other than that, and on purpose I left it at the end, where I believe is going to be most difficult for the banks, I think when it's about MiCA. And that's simply because here we have, first of all, a mindset, I don't know, what's called cognitive dissonance. Yeah? So European officials for years labeled crypto as Ponzi scheme, gambling, whatever. And then, surprise, surprise, the way Europe regulated crypto has nothing to do with Ponzi scheme, has nothing to do with gambling, actually has everything to do with the financial markets and with the payment services. Okay? So that's a bit of, I think, of a paradigm shock there, and I think Europe is trying to cope with it. We're seeing this already happening, and stablecoins is, as was mentioned, the most obvious case, and there are some big banking groups at European level. I think SocGen is the most obvious one, which launched via a subsidiary called Forge years ago. They launched a euro stable coin under some special French legislation, which is now MiCA compliant. But all in all, I think for the banking sector to cope, let's say, with MiCA, that's a big challenge, exactly because of this sudden change of paradigm. Even so, my last note as a lawyer, I cannot stop from observing that the way MiCA is regulating crypto-related services is as if it tries to encourage the existing players, whether they are banks or securities firms, to be themselves the one who act as service providers, because they don't need a new license. But they have to go through a process which is very similar to licensing.
Yeah. Allow me here, so in a simplistic manner, within Central Eastern Europe umbrella, do you consider, is it regulatory harmonization or regulatory arbitrage?
I think with a few exceptions, which to my knowledge are winding down. So if you speak about some of the Baltic states, yeah, the rumor was for a while that it was easier there to get, for example, a payment services license. What I've heard over the last years is that also there, like pretty much everywhere in Europe, if you go to get a license in one country, the regulator there is not going to give it to you unless you demonstrate you have a local business case.
Footprint, yeah.
Yeah? Once this is enacted by all the regulators, I think the room for regulatory arbitrage is a bit less. That being said, it is. And if we look at the number of, like, for example, payment institution licenses, I think at some point Romania and Bulgaria were the laggards of Europe. Yeah? So that's obvious. That means in some countries, the granting of licensing might have been lighter. Yeah.
Thank
you.
That's
just factual observation.
Super. Thank you very much. Ralph, please pick up a piece of regulation, comment on obstacles or enables, please.
No, I do share the same opinion that when it comes to, at least on the European front, to the payments legislation package, PSR, PSD3, and so on, I don't think there's anything that's revolutionary in a sense. I think it's more about evolution, it's more about fine-tuning certain things that were brought by, for example, PSD2. But maybe I will refer a bit back in time because I think it will be relevant going forward, PSD2 and maybe the strong customer authentication aspect, which was quite tricky and challenging, not necessarily only from the perspective that we had, it involved a broad amount of stakeholders, from merchants to financial institutions to schemes, to adapt their business models and obviously to invest in making sure that SCA is implemented. But I think another interesting thing, again, the balancing dilemma between customer experience and security. So where do we find that balance? I think that was crucial, and I think what's important going forward as PSR and PSD3 are discussing ways to make SCA more accessible, maybe for those who aren't so financially and digitally literate, is again to make sure that that balance is struck correctly. That on one hand, we make sure that we comply with the existing legislation, and on the other hand, our compliance with this legislation means embedding security in the process of payment, which makes it easier for the consumers of any sort to access the services safely.
Thank you very much for your input. Gabriel, you have the floor.
I will move again the discussion to our market. I think in financial services, due to the maturity, there are not impossible challenges. Yes, okay, some may be tough, but not impossible. If we compare financial services with other industries, I think there are more challenges in others. For example, NIS2 may be more difficult to implement both from regulatory perspective and from subjects perspective. Why? Because NIS2 is not a regulation, it's a directive and has local flavors and have to address so many industries, and because of the maturity of those industries. While in financial services, I think in the last years we've seen a maturity where yes, challenges have been there, including adopting new technologies. Sometimes National Bank was very tough in challenging different risks, like concentration risk in relation to cloud, for example. And yesterday event with AWS showed that risk is there, and AWS was not accessible for a part of companies. So it's a valid point, but still not something that cannot be addressed. So I think it also comes again with maturity. Yeah, and we are lucky in the financial industry that we are leading at least the maturity competition in our market.
Thank you very much. Now, the banking experience, Catalin, please. Thank you.
Yeah, coming from the battlefield, we love regulations, as you probably imagine. And if I will start counting all the regulations, I don't think we will have time today.
Pick one,
however, in this field, in the digital field, again, in the past years, the view changed. So the regulations are moving more and more, and especially in the payments ecosystem, from protecting the institution, the bank, to protect the customers. Yeah? And this is what Andrei was saying, this is automatically creating the business case. So if I'm looking only to Banca Transilvania, what is the investment that we did in the past year and what we are having in the plan exactly to protect the customers, this is huge. Yeah? I don't want to advance numbers here, but it's huge. Yeah? This is automatically creating a business case, because if our customers are not protected, then of course we might lose the customers. Yeah? So, and I think this is important because these regulations are useful when coming about protecting the customers. And where the challenges are coming is how you implement the regulations, how the regulators are looking to us in such a way to create a level playing field and to have the so-called risk-based approach, so this cultural change in the regulatory environment, which is promoting more and more the change from zero risk to risk-based approach. So, and here it is the, I would say, the new name of the game. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your angle, Florin, an industry perspective.
Shall I repeat my introduction?
No, add something.
So, some figures about what we discussed here, and an introduction in words. Why banks are practically not complaining, but showing that there are barriers, there are problems there. Why they are doing this? Because usually, as my colleague says, we love regulations. We are the most regulated industry in the world. There's no discussion about this. Why are we saying this? Because at the end of the day, the players in the economy, they are seeing what is the impact. And at the end of the day, a Romanian bank is an European bank in a system which is the so-named banco-centric system. I think you know that in Europe, 75% from the total financing is done by banks, also in Romania. So the assets from the total financiers of the economy is done by banks. That means Romanian banks, at the end of the day, they have to compete with European banks. And European banks, they have to compete with American banks and with Chinese banks, and so on. Otherwise, if we are not respecting these rules of the economy and principles of the economy, competing, resisting, supporting, developing, that means you will disappear. So when we are talking about digitalization and anti-fraud fighting and everything, cybersecurity, of course there are on the top line of importance. The problem is, what about our competitors? What about the cost? And what about the sustainability of the regulation from this perspective? And the cost, I don't know, the consultants here on the table, all they have figures about evaluating compliance cost. The last one I remember is 1.5% in Europe from the total assets of banks. 1.5% is equivalent, ladies and gentlemen, with the return on assets average in Europe. Around 0.5 is the return on assets. If you are having a compliance cost of 1.5, you can see the impact. It is not about peanuts. And of course, when you are talking about risks, you can individualize, find about 12 big risks, I believe. If you are splitting the risks from the perspective of regulation, you can find around 48 risks. Okay? The last one is the model risk of the model. People which are administrating risks in formulas and they do not have to check what it is about, they will administrate the result of the formula, okay? Is it nice? So when we are talking about this and we are adding to this AI and everything other important matters, you see that the fight is really important. And figures, some more about this 1.5, it is also how big is the industry, the banking industry, so regulated in respect of also digitalization, consumer protection and everything. Is it the main street of the developing of the country? Maybe yes, maybe not. But the perception of the politicians and regulators from time to time is banks that are really leading economies, right? In Europe, maybe. We have countries with financial intermediation lending to private GDP, private lending to GDP, above 100. The theory is saying that you are okay if you are in between 60% and 80%. We are running with 22%, which position us in between low-income countries in the world which is around 18, and the sub-Saharan countries in Africa, which is around 27 as an average. If you are having the same regulation as you have in the regions, it's not about Europe only, where intermediation is done by banks with 75% as it in Europe, and you have the same regulation in a country where you are running with 22, that means to have the same pill, okay, for healthy, given to an obese guy, or maybe a fat guy, let's say, the same with the underweight guy, right? Because the regulation started in 2014 to decrease the intermediation which was too large and too low regulated, okay? But in countries like us, and also Poland, also Hungary, around 35% intermediation, that means we are so fragmented, and we are talking the same language for digitalization and everything. Of course, they are important, but as an economist, as a rational guy in the room, you have to explain this and to, I don't know, to have a strategic approach for the reality, not for the, I don't know what point in the future, strategic point. We banks in Europe explained to European Commission that, it's just an example, all the laws and the programs and strategy about climate change till 2050 has no finance before this. And we do not have the capital market for this, and we do not have the capital in banks and capacity of the European banks to finance this. So the result was, anyway, we have this strategy. Thank you for the moment.
Thank you, Florin. A lot of food for thought for Gabriel.
Yeah.
Please, you have the floor. Comment also on the.
Thank you.
On the other panelists.
This is a huge subject. We can talk for until the end of the day, and we will not finish half of it. So I would just like to bring out a couple of things. For example, the estimate total cost of cybersecurity incidents in the last year, it's close to $10 trillion. And the investments that have been made, the size of the market of cybersecurity, it's estimated about less than 300 billion. So as we can...
Cost or investment?
Cost on investment. So there is still a huge gap that justifies the need for more cybersecurity. On the other hand, of course, more mature industries are investing a lot more, so the cost is not spread uniformly between the actors. But as a regulator, we have the mission to protect the society as a whole and protect the individuals to make sure that we can, of course, in a risk-based manner, we can take the necessary measures in order to achieve that. So it's been said before by Ralph that it's an easy job for regulators. It's not an easy job. And I'm talking from the perspective of a regulator from a relatively new field, the cybersecurity. The cybersecurity has been laid on previous legislation and regulations in different sectors. Of course, there are sectors with high maturities like the banking sector. There are other sectors which don't have too many regulation in place. What we need to do right now, I was talking earlier about NIS2. And NIS2, I think right now it's the baseline when it comes to cybersecurity measures for almost the whole society approach in Europe. And it's been inspiring other regions of the globe to adopt similar legislation. But as Gabriel was saying earlier, we still have difficulties when it comes to making sure that we can establish a baseline taking into consideration the needs for each and every actor. We have a huge a variety of industries and sectors and in size of the entities and so on. And right now, all the society is interconnected. So we are talking about a risk landscape that should be dealing with things like supply chain. And yes, we've seen the incident that happened the other days. These kind of incidents are going to happen more and more, and we will see the effects as a wave, a ripple that will spread to different entities. So this is probably one of the, I won't say blind spot, but this is one of the domains that are the hardest to cover from a regulatory standpoint. This is when difficulties will come for us to be able to make sure that we can put in place measures that deal with these kinds of risks. Also, we still have a difficulty when it comes to harmonizing all the types of regulations that we will need to handle. So, of course, we have NIS2, we have DORA, we have CRA, we have AI Act, we have so many legislations that they should come together as the pieces of a puzzle, and most of the time they don't. So there are overlaps, and we've been talking about this at least in cybersecurity at the European level about simplification, which is a big word, but for now it doesn't mean much, as we can see, and harmonization. And I believe that one of the solutions would be a one-stop shop where we can actually help, because in the end, who's the one that is feeling all the pressure? It's the entities that need to implement all the regulation. So what we need to do is to help them understand what's applying to them and how to deal with it, and at the same time we need to have the instruments to be able to have surveillance and control over how the regulation is put in place. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to balance everything, and we need to have a constant dialogue with all the stakeholders to find the best solutions that we can apply.
Thank you very much. Now, very quickly, I will ask you, gentlemen, to touch the last pillar of our panel, the cybersecurity aspect. Please, Florin, name 1-2 emerging threats for organizations today linked with cybersecurity. Your concern. I would like to have your personal touch in this respect.
I am not the right person to start. I will let my colleagues to say it exactly professionally. Of course, in my mind is coming first that we are at the same stage with the individual risk, of the risk of individual people, mm-hmm. which is the most important thing. And to example something about cybersecurity, I believe that there are 3 things important here: innovation, digitalization, and cybersecurity. And all together do not have the same speeds. This is generally a conclusion, let's say. And the main frame for us is to have a common approach, we all together, for speeds of these 3 things, right? And prioritization for each 3. Mm-hmm. All the time we will have differences in it. If our purpose is, as I said, politically correct, to say that everything must be best in the domain, it is impossible. I think we have to assume and to have the responsibility, because I all the time believe that an authority means responsibility. Authority means not to put the responsibility in other place. So if we have the authority, the beneficiaries, which are people, and the intermediaries, which are banks in this case, we can find the right key and approach for each matter we discussed. also the level of education, also level of economic development, also the total matrix of regulations. Each regulation is hugely important. If we are summarizing everything and seeing the total impact overall, connected to with your structure, your body, maybe it will be a new approach which can come closer to the reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Florin. Gabriel, please.
If we think about threats to one industry, we can discuss very specifically, and we will need a lot of time. But I think there are few, because it's very hard to name only one, which are across industries, including financial services and many others. So as I mentioned earlier, one is education. I think another one which is a threat, but in the same time also an enabler, is the advance of technology and the pace. Why I say that it is a threat? Because I think not everybody will be ready to keep the pace. I think if we discuss about AI, we are already in let's say, educated levels, what is about and what can be used, and we can understand at least principles. If we discuss about quantum, and especially quantum combined with AI, because they work very well together, I don't think that most of us are ready to understand all the threats and all the risks coming from that area. So we can continue with this, but I will limit only to these two to also to leave my colleagues to add.
Thank you. Ralph, please.
No, maybe just to quickly add, I think maybe two concerns. One which we're seeing right now, and one which I think will develop over the short to mid-term. The first one was mentioned by Gabriel, which is the dual use of AI. We've touched upon this. I think AI can be used for good, but then it can also be used for creating synthetic identities, for better targeting the people that are most vulnerable when it comes to using financial products. So I think that's one concern which we're seeing right now, and which we are countering through huge investments on our payments rails. A second one, which I think will evolve in the next few years, is regarding the new phase of AI, which we are slowly but surely entering in, and that is the agentic AI phase, where I think the entire threat landscape in payments will change. I think it will now no longer just be about securing the user, but it will also be about securing the user's agent. And I think agentic AI bots, for example, they can be used, and in the future they will be used also for conducting various attacks by malicious actors. So I think in the mid to long term, this will be a challenge that will need to be addressed, and I think this can only be done through co-creation, through shortening the response gap between the private sector, who is often in the front line when it comes to these attacks, and the habilitated government entities and regulators. So I think, yeah, in short, this cannot be done by a single private sector. I think it requires the involvement of all parties involved in the process.
All the stakeholders.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Catalin, please, your view on this.
Threatened. I would rather call it financial crime when looking to the financial industries. And if let's count some. API infiltration, spoofing, ransomware, malware, phishing. There are so many, and most probably as we speak, another one is inventing. Yeah. What we do in the industry, shoulder to shoulder with our regulators, we are trying to prevent and to detect. But I would say that it's another layer, and here I would do a call for action. Prevention of prevention, where the roots of the financial crime are coming from. And these are in this order. Social media. So all investor scam, all social engineering is coming, almost all is coming from there. There is no regulation there, or almost no regulation. And this means prevention. Second one, and in this order, this is a call for action, please. Second, internet, phishing. When the scammers are paying when filtering to show the first one, a website which is a phishing website, this means financial crime. And third one, telecom or telecommunications, spoofing. Once this will be fixed, I think it will be less work or less losses or lower losses for the entire population. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good point. Andrei, please. A legal view.
Yeah, I was thinking how to approach it. I'll say a few things. One, to me, the biggest threat, and that's based on observations of how companies reacted to DORA and the work we did really in relation to DORA. I think one of the biggest threats is actually to underestimate the cyber risk. I mean, obviously without giving names, but if we would look at the landscape covered by DORA in Romania, you'll find quite a wide range of how it was implemented. From entities who really wanted to be 100% DORA compliant, to entities who said, okay, let's do something. Let's do something that when BNR comes, at least we can show we did something. And in particular, I'm referring to contracts, and I'll mention only one point. DORA is a huge document. But there's an article there that's shocking for a lawyer, which says that the ITC contracts should clearly state the rights, the object of the contract and the rights and the obligations of the parties. You read this as a lawyer and you fall off your chair. Do we need a regulation to tell us that that's what a contract should say? And I was like, that's crazy. But if you look into the ITC contracts, some of them, it's a 4 hours job to clearly define parties, object, how those various documents interact to each other, because you're usually talking about chains of subcontractors and so on, so it's quite complex. So to me, even that point alone is a proof that DORA was needed, DORA had to come, yes? And I would say one of the biggest risks is for the players exposed to this risk is to underestimate and to view it just as a compliance. I really think cybersecurity is not and should not be viewed as compliance. I think it could be an existential threat for those companies and for their customers. So to me, it's a very different thing. It's not just, it's a compliance thing, yeah? It's not any type of compliance. And last point, a contrarian view. What I'm afraid of with all this protection or the need to protect of cybersecurity risks and so on, is that there might be a moment where we will be tempted to trade our privacy versus security. And I really hope that the society will resist to that. I think we have to learn that in life, there is no life without risk. So we need to accept some risk. And I don't think that for the sake of zero risk, we should trade off our privacy. That's
very good point. Please, you have the floor to pack up everything.
Yeah. Well, from a, let's say, strictly technical point of view, when it comes to the threats, of course, ransomware and DDoS are probably still the first threats that we can encounter in this field specifically. There's also an enabler, very big enabler, is the fact that with the democratization of access to malware tools and access to AI tools, we now can, we are confronted with social engineering that is AI enabled, and it's getting very powerful and very difficult to deal with it. It's also used in frauds, and we can see huge fraud campaigns with very important impact. Also, AI is going to be used in developing malware, smart malware that will, and we can also already see that happening. That is going to be very good at evading, and it will have a great impact. Of course, there's another risk generated by the need in the near future, probably, of post-quantum cryptography algorithms, because it is the technology of decrypting the current algorithms. It's very close, so we need to be prepared, and this will need a lot of investments in order to be implemented, these kind of technologies. So as a whole, these are the main threats that we can see right now. Also, as I was saying before, and it's been said in the panel, the attacks on the third parties and the supply chain attacks are now a reality, and they are going to happen more and more, and they will have a great impact. So it is very important the way we are dealing when we are having drafting contracts and so on, and how we can impose the other entities that we are buying from or are being interconnected with to have at least a similar level of cybersecurity as we do. So this is also a very important thing. And the last one I would like to point out, it's that the resilience. We need to be resilient, and we need to have contingency plans. We need to have the capability to get back after a cyber attack. And we can see recently it's been a cyber attack against the infrastructure of South Korea, governmental infrastructure of South Korea. And unexpectedly, from such a country that is very technologically advanced, there were some systems there that didn't have a backup. Yep. So they were impacted highly. So we need to be able to respond to crisis. This is a very important issue that it's right now. It's also a reality. We can see what's happening in Ukraine. There are a lot of lessons to be learned from also in the banking sector, in the financial sector, from what has been happening there and how they managed to deal with it in terms of resilience and crisis management.
Thank you very much. A very good example to conclude this session. Please allow me to take 1-2 questions, because the seniority of our speakers, if there are specific interest or other aspects to be commented, would like to open up the floor for 1 or 2 questions from the public. You are very clear, so I'm very glad. At the crossroad between digital regulation and cybersecurity, I strongly believe that cooperation is one of the key points. The other one is sharing expertise, sharing business cases, and of course, business continuity planning and adjusting like every day to play the game, to make the best of the risk management and of the expertise of the people that are involved in this cybersecurity, as well as in all the financial market. Thank you very much for the tremendous input from the speakers. Thank you very much to the organizers. We wish success for the next sessions. Thank you very much.